Welcome back, guys, to the Futbal Biz podcast. As always, I'm Graysen Mortimer. He is Hunter Boyven, and a lot has happened in the past week. First, we're going to start with deadline day, cover some big transfers there, and then go on to some big matches and results that happened over the weekend, as well as some key players going down with injury. So to kick us off, we'll go into some big transfers on deadline day. I think we'll start with the biggest one, which I believe was Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea for well over $100 million. I mean, this was an absolute big one. They were linked with him basically the whole window. And what are your thoughts on this one?
Um, hmm, well, I'd say as far as the rest of Chelsea's transfers go, this is probably their best move, especially since they were able to get Jorginho out of there in time as a little bit of a replacement. Unfortunately, he did start basically the day after it happened or 2 days after it happened, and they still came up with a 0-0 draw. So maybe it's just a lack of knowing what's going on there, but didn't seem too great, if I'm being completely honest. But that's just a Chelsea thing right now.
Yeah, I think Chelsea as a whole has been struggling. We'll elaborate a little bit more on that later, but I do like this move. The only issue I have with it is the cost. I mean,
Yeah.
they could have. I mean, this has been all over, Instagram and Facebook and basically everywhere. That they could have easily just bought him for £8 million or outbid Benfica over the summer if they
Mhm.
really knew about this kid. But the problem is that they didn't because he really only came to prominence during the World Cup, and then Benfica made over £100 million of profit on him.
Yeah, honestly good for Benfica because I mean they're one of those teams who was able to create and then export and make a lot of money off of it. Um, Not to say that Enzo isn't worth a lot of money, but not many people are worth that much, and I don't think he's an exception to that.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you go over the top 10 most expensive transfers, the only one that I could really think of that was worth the money, and I'm not even sure if he's in the top 10 anymore, is Gareth Bale to Real Madrid. That one obviously worked out as well as Madrid could have hoped. But outside of him, not
Mhm.
many of these big deals have worked. Neymar has had mixed success with PSG. He's obviously been on fire when he's played, but he's had injury crisis. I don't think he's been worth 222 million.
Yeah.
Eden Hazard was a complete failure for Madrid. The only positive with him is that it gave rise to Vinicius Jr. And eh, some of the recent ones just haven't worked either. So it's a big risk that Chelsea's taking and more spending by Boli. I do like Fernandez as a player, obviously winning Young Player of the Tournament for the World Cup. But I overall think that I'm going to give this one about a five. Um, if it was a little bit less, I'd give it a bit higher, but I don't think that the price warrants the player. So I'm going to say a 5 out of 10 for Enzo Fernandez.
I'll say six, maybe. I'll kind of agree with you there, but I do think that one game in, it's hard to make an immediate impact, especially at a position like that. You're not supposed to be scoring all the goals. You're not supposed to be keeping clean sheets. You're kind of spread a little thin sometimes. So, not too sure. We'll see soon.
Yeah, and just looking at some of the more expensive transfers of all time, Mbappe is also high up in there. That may be the only other one that has worked out, in the history. But that's because Mbappe has been the talisman of PSG for as long as we can remember. But they still haven't won a Champions League. But I would still say overall that Mbappe has been a good transfer, obviously
Yeah.
for PSG. But then you go down the list. Joao Felix, I would consider him a failure for Atleti. Um, Philippe Coutinho to Barcelona, absolute
Big
disaster.
flop.
Antoine Griezmann to Barcelona, absolute disaster. Grealish to Man City.
Oh
He's
my
been
God.
better, but right now I'm still saying it's
The price
a
was
fail.
never warranted there.
Still say it's a flop. Um, Lukaku to Chelsea, failure. Usman Dembele to Barcelona. I'm a little bit indifferent with this one because I do think that he's a class player, but with his injury history, it's tough. He is still obviously at Barcelona, but overall, I'm still leaning towards no. But I'm on the fence with Dembele. And then you got Paul Pogba at ninth, tied with Dembele. So that's a top 10 right there. And then Bale and Cristiano Ronaldo. are after them. Bale, obviously, as I mentioned, was great, and that was Ronaldo to Juventus, which was overall I'd still say decent because he did win the league titles with them, but little success in the Champions League. But basically, through that top 10, the only one that really stood out is Mbappe, and maybe Neymar. Obviously, Neymar, as I said, Neymar's been class when he's played, but he's had injuries.
Mhm.
So I think out of the top 10, Enzo Fernandez finds himself in fourth now for the most expensive transfers ever. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah, nothing to add to that. I completely agree with you there. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to some a couple loan deals here. The first one is Joao Cancelo to Bayern Munich. Now, I know you're happy about this one,
Very.
considering Cancelo is a class player. I'm a little bit on the fence with this one because I do like Cancelo, but I will admit he's been quite poor this season for Man City. He had one assist in 17 matches, which for his standards is pretty bad to go with no goals. I do think that the loan was necessary. I think he's got to refine his feet a little bit. And he obviously had a big assist in his first match, a big couple assists. So I think the move to Bayern will only benefit both club and player.
Yeah, very happy about this. He's kind of transitioning between right wing back and right back. In the Pokal the other day, he played kind of a right mid. Today in the Bundesliga, he played traditional right back, although he did push forward. He got an assist in both games, so I'm very happy with that. He's bringing more creativity rather to Bayern that they've been lacking for a little bit now, and they got their first win in a while as far as Bundesliga goes. Um, I know that Pavard is probably on his way out as far as right backs go for the next transfer window,
He
probably at the
can
end.
play center back too, though, so there is at least that
He
with
prefers
Bavard.
center back, but he's been linked to Barcelona for the next one. So, in case he does leave, this is a loan with an option to buy. As of right now, I am very hopeful that maybe they take this into consideration down the line.
Yeah, it's hard to say if they will buy. I think if he continues the way he's been, I think Bayern Munich will pursue the purchase on him, which I think as a City fan would benefit Bayern a little bit more than us. But at the same time, Rico Lewis has obviously emerged in City's team, and there's still the likes of Walker, Ake, as among others that can play wing back, Sergio Gomez as well. Um, but I do think that would still be a big void to fill. But that being said, I mean, again, Cancelo's been poor, so maybe Guardiola's system change has hampered him out a little bit, and Bayern Munich are the beneficiaries on that one.
Just with the history that Pep has with Bayern, I don't think he'd be the type to stir them the wrong way. So maybe it's you know an appreciation, I guess, for his time there, giving up a quality player, but at the same time, he has time to develop his own. So it might be a 50-50, 45-55, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's definitely a good move for Bayern.
I would agree with that. Yeah, that's another big one, and a couple of transfers that kind of caught me off guard because of the club that managed to pull them off. Nottingham Forest had a very good window. I mean, they had a fantastic window. Getting experienced defender Felipe from Atletico Madrid, 33 years old, sure, but only £2 million for him. I mean, that's not bad. That's not
Uh,
bad at all.
yeah,
Um, and for a team like Forest to get a well experienced Brazilian center back, that's good money.
yeah, that coupled with the other transfer and Keylor Navas. Um, obviously they played today. Nottingham Forest kept a clean sheet in his first game there. I think that's a good start. I don't think Felipe played today. Um, no, he did not play today. He was on the bench, but he did not come on. But I think it could prove to be something quite nice. They're not in relegation zone right now,
Yeah,
and
they
with
beat Leeds, who is a competitor for one of those positions, so that's a big one.
a win today, yeah, they definitely are keeping up their hopes. Good for them on both. I'd say Keylor Navas is probably the bigger one. I'm not sure the price on that, whatever happened there. I don't know if you have the info on that.
Navas was a loan with no option to buy.
Okay. Well, at least for the rest of the season, there's a lot of games left to play. I think if their plan is to um, stay in the Prem, then this is probably a good move for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm gonna give. I forgot to rate Cancelo. I'm gonna give that a 9 for Bayern. I think that's a big one for
I'll
them.
agree on that. Yes.
Um, Felipe, I'm gonna give a 7. Again, it's a good price. I don't know a ton about him, but for the experience, actually I'll give him an 8 because a 2 million pounds for an experienced player is pretty good. Navas, I'm going to give a 10. I mean, you're not as Nottingham Forest, you're not going to get a better goalkeeper than Keylor Navas, even at 36. I mean, this is a guy that's won 4 Champions Leagues. His pedigree speaks for itself. I mean, PSG kind of treated him like garbage by getting Donnarumma. They clearly didn't trust him. I don't know why, because Keylor Navas has, been as good as they come for a long time.
Yes.
And again, Nottingham Forest will not get a better keeper. No offense to Dean Henderson, who is injured right now, but even when he comes back, there's no way he's getting back in that team. And yeah, Keylor Navas is an absolute class signing. I
I think
mean,
he's one of the most disrespected players of all time, if I'm being honest.
and he doesn't deserve it whatsoever.
He's so underrated, and I don't know why. I'll tell you right now, in the Champions League final a couple of years ago, if he wasn't in net, Bayern would have scored probably 10 goals. The saves that he pulled off against Bayern that game were unbelievable. And honestly, like a class player all around from his time in Madrid to PSG.
Yeah,
Signing of
absolutely.
Donnarumma was disrespectful, honestly, and clearly it hasn't really worked out that well. I'd say it hasn't been what they had hoped. I think his potential in the Serie A was kind of let down by his time now at PSG for what they had hoped.
Yeah, I think he'll still come good. I mean, Donnarumma has been playing forever, but is still only like 23 or 24. He's still a young keeper. Um, and yeah, I think Navas was right to move, and I think he'll only be happy at Nottingham Forest. But yeah, moving on to a couple of final ones. The first one, which I think was absolutely excellent business, is Jorginho to Arsenal for 10 million pounds plus potential more 2 million more add-ons. I'm giving this one a 10. I mean, you're getting the guy who finished third in the Ballon d'Or running up a couple years ago. Um, I mean, that's just a phenomenal transfer.
Yeah, definitely for the price. I want to might maybe give it an 8 or a 9 just because I haven't seen much. But unfortunately, the game that he was subbed on ended up conceding immediately after. Not to say that it was his fault, but um, I definitely like to see more. Of course, Arsenal have a history of losing to Everton at their home stadium. So it could have just been a one-off thing as far as Jorginho goes. But I think for the rest of the season, this is probably a pretty good move.
I would say so. I mean, Jorginho is obviously a class player. Is he the fastest? No. But is he going to get the job done? Absolutely. I mean,
I'd say so.
put him alongside Thomas Partey, or sub him on for Granit Xhaka, and I mean, you've got an absolutely great player. Dude can put a pass anywhere he wants to. His through balls are amazing. If you need a penalty taker, he is up there with the best out there. And I think, I mean, for 12 million total pounds, I mean, you're not going to get much better than that. Chelsea got absolutely fleeced on this one. They could have at least asked for 25, and Arsenal probably still would have paid it. I mean, that's one that I don't understand how Arsenal got away with that. Like, Todd Bowley is not good at earning money.
It's good at spending, and I guess maybe that's the name of his game. As long as you're making money as far as jersey sales and whatnot, I don't really see the revenue coming in right now. Um, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And with Jorginho coming in, the final transfer I do want to talk about is Albert Sambi Lokonga going to Crystal Palace on loan. Obviously, younger Arsenal player. I said last week that he didn't have the necessary experience to be in this team, and clearly Arsenal's board agreed with me because he's been loaned out to Crystal Palace. I think he'll thrive there. I mean, Patrick Vieira's got a very young squad overall, and I think he'll only add to that.
Yeah, I did think he got subbed on against United. Of course, United won that game, but it looked like he put in a pretty decent performance for the few minutes, 20 or so minutes that he was in. That's just one to look out for the rest of the season. I don't know much about him personally, so I'll land on a 7. Of course, it's a loan and it's a developmental thing, so I only see it as a benefit, uh, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think this loan's only going to benefit both him and Arsenal. I do think there's a class player in there. I just think he needs a little bit more experience to really go out there and get it done. But overall, I do like him. I do think that this loan will benefit him. And Palace is a decent team. Uh, they've been mid-table in the Prem for a while. And I think that's where they'll finish again. They haven't really been threatened with relegation, so it's a good club that I think a lot of guys can develop at. And you know, if they push on, they could even maybe make a potential case to finish in the top half of the table. I do think that they have the players to do that. Guys like Elise, Wilfred Zaha, you know, as well as a decent defense led by guys like Joaquin Anderson and Mark Gahey, I think are good enough to potentially have this team finish in the top half. But that'll do it for transfers for us. I do think that there's going to be a lot of talk about how these guys pan out, especially I think Enzo Fernandez, who is now the most expensive player to ever enter the Premier League. Um, we will see what happens there. But moving on to some big games. First one was in France, and the game itself was 2-1 to PSG. But the big news is that Kylian Mbappe did suffer a muscular injury and will be out for about 2 to 3 weeks.
Yes, never want to wish badly upon any athlete uh, in the way that this happened, but I think as far as timing goes, Bayern fan, this is perfect. Of course, I'll wait to see it to believe it because they could push him to play still, but supposedly he's confirmed to miss the first leg of the UCL against Bayern. Um, Not to say that's anything definitive because he's the type of player who can come back the next game and totally flip it on its head. But as far as this goes, it's definitely a tough loss for them. But they still have Messi, they still have Neymar, they still have an entire squad that gels well together. Obviously, they're doing well, and Ligue 1 continue to build the gap. But any team that misses out with Mbappe is in for a hurting. So
Yeah, I mean the thing with PSG is they have incredible squad depth. Ekitike has been one guy that I think will step in for Mbappe. He's been good since going to PSG, but also I think the bigger factor for PSG right now, even with Mbappe, is still Messi. I mean he's been back to his normal
mhm.
self, the guy that we were expecting last season. We didn't see it, but now Messi's back to his best. I mean, the World Cup I think only helped his confidence. And I mean, we're seeing the guy that we knew and loved from Barcelona, arguably the greatest of all time. You know, the fact that we're seeing him back to his best, I think will still give Bayern Munich a run for their money, especially if he's on the right. Alfonso
Yeah.
Davies is going to have a big job to do. Um,
Well, he's
you know,
done it
obviously
before, so
which he has. So I do think that that's going to be a fun matchup to watch. But I do think that that Messi is still the bigger factor. But yeah, it'll be a big loss for sure if Mbappe is out. So I hope he plays. I think it'll be the most fair if he does, but um, still a massive loss if you're PSG.
yeah. But again, I wait to see it to believe it because I mean I don't know the severity of it, but a player like that in a match of that caliber, sometimes coaches in any sport really will try to push their best player, despite the fact that it might not be best for their health.
Yeah, I mean PSG does play Bayern Munich in about 9 days' time. This episode's being recorded on February 5th, so he's got 9 days to potentially get healthy, or at the very least, um, work his way back for the second leg. But moving on to some other big matches, there were a few in the Prem today, or this weekend, I should say. The first one is that Everton, of all teams, beat Arsenal 1-0 at home.
Yeah, very surprising. Of course, there's a little bit of tradition that goes into this. Like I said earlier, they have a history of losing to Everton at Everton's home stadium. Not to say that that means anything. It could mean nothing. But at the end of the day, they win 1-0. They stop Arsenal, drop a few points. This is good, very good for Everton because they're trying to get out of relegation conversation. Of course, they still have some work to do, but uh, Arsenal did not look very good at all, if I'm being honest. Maybe that's a proper shout out to Everton for the way they played, but at the end of the day, this is not how a potential champion can hope to perform for the rest of the season.
Yeah, obviously Arsenal did catch a break because Man City also lost to Tottenham, which is another ground where a team has struggled. Man City has gone to Tottenham Stadium 5 separate occasions. They haven't even
Mm,
scored a goal, and they've lost
yep.
all of them. And I guess maybe that's why the Prem looked at the season and was like, hey, Arsenal and City are going to be good. Let's put them on the same weekend so that we get the others' hope up and then absolutely crush their dreams. Which, if that's what they were aiming for, that's what they did. Because I was very annoyed after Man City lost to Tottenham 1-0. But yeah, it was a good result for Everton. I mean, Sean Dyche, I think, is the right man for the job there. He's got the defensive stability about him, and it clearly showed in this game with the shutout. And then his old reliable center back from Burnley, James Tarkowski, did get the winner, which is about as much of a Sean Dyche performance as you're going to get. So, um, big win for Everton. I do think they're going to stay up. I think, yeah, as you said, there's more work to do, but I do think that they're going to be fine. Had a bit of a Wi-Fi blip there, but yeah, as I said, I do believe Everton will be okay there on that front.
Yeah, obviously they still have some work to do. I'll check now. It's still in 18th place. They're still at the top of the relegation, but they are tied for points to the Leeds and one behind West Ham. Of course, West Ham. We'll talk about that next if you want to. They managed to take a point away from Newcastle in a 1-1 draw.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, it seems like, barring one, which we'll talk about in a minute, it looks like the top four teams had a week to forget, really.
Yeah, outside of United, who we'll talk about after this game, but yeah, not a good weekend for the top four. Both Arsenal and City obviously losing, and then yeah, Newcastle failed to beat West Ham at home. They obviously scored early on through Callum Wilson, but then Lucas Paqueta was able to equalize. This result definitely is better for West Ham than Newcastle. West Ham has been a team that I've kind of been surprised has struggled after how good they've been the last 2 seasons. Making it to the Europa League semis last year. I mean, that was in itself a massive achievement. But then the fact that they've regressed so much this year has just been quite shocking. Is despite I think the fact that they got better. Paqueta is a huge player for them. Big transfer. But as well as Gianluca Scamacca, who has been pretty poor to be fair, but is one that I've expected to be a little bit better. But West Ham did do one thing that I think will help them, which we didn't talk about this in our transfers video, but they did get Danny Ings from Aston Villa. That's going to be huge for them. He's obviously a proven Premier League striker, and one that I think will help them stay up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've struggled, and I don't really see how, because like they are a good team, and they've had players who played in the last World Cup who were all quality, Paqueta and Declan Rice. Um, I don't really know where the struggle is coming from. Of course, the Prem is not an easy league, but then at the same time, you have them drawing against third, fourth place team. So I don't really know what's going on. Could just be a slump. I mean, I expect them to stay in, but it's definitely a shocking performance as far as the entire season goes.
Yeah, they've obviously they're unbeaten now in two. They did beat Everton, and they obviously tied this game. So I think it's only the only way for them is to go up. If they can hit their stride, I actually think they'll be able to potentially push for a top 10 finish. Which for how bad they've been this season, they'll take that any day of the week. Um, and I do think that they have the potential to go far and kick on. I think Newcastle's biggest thing is still going to be pushing for the Champions League spot, of course, but also they are in the Carabao Cup final, so I think that that's going to be their main focus for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, which is totally respectable. I mean, Newcastle is in fourth place right now, two behind United, and one above Tottenham. But Tottenham does have a game over them, so above almost everyone else with 22 games played. So, I mean, again, at the beginning of the season, I've been saying Newcastle should make a top four finish. I really hope they do. It's a good story. It's a good little team. Not spending too much money on a squad that's proven
Yeah,
themselves quite well. Uh, I can only hope that they finish strong.
yeah, I hope so too. I do like Newcastle. They've done well with what they have. They've obviously have spent some money, but not nearly as much as people were expecting after their massive takeover. But overall, I do think that they'll finish top four. I think they've got the squad. At the very least, I think they'll get fifth and qualify for the Europa League, which I think is still a good season on their end. But the match we'll move on to now is Man United against Crystal Palace. I believe was it Crystal Palace? I don't remember.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Crystal Palace. I blanked there for a second. Um, but yeah, they win 2-1, and they just keep rolling.
Yeah. I feel like we say this every week, especially with Rashford. Rashford is on fire as always. I don't know the numbers on it as far as his goals go. Um, I think he might. Ooh, I don't know. I'll double check this right now as far as goals go.
Yeah, I mean he's been the guy that Man United have needed. I mean he's a player completely rejuvenated under Eric Ten Hag. But I do think there is one point we got to talk about is Casemiro,
Yeah.
the other guy who United have needed. Maybe the dumbest play of the week. I mean he put his arms around the neck of a Palace player. I don't know how you expect to get away with that. He got rightly so sent off, and that's going to hurt United potentially.
Yeah, I think that is definitely something that he would get away with in La Liga. He probably has before.
Yeah,
That's
Lajos was probably refereeing.
something that Ramos has probably gotten away with several times in La Liga as well. Yeah, that's definitely not going to fly. I don't think there was much of a complaint there, at least once he calmed down and saw really what happened. But yeah, that definitely sucks for them, especially because they're pushing for a top four spot themselves. They're honestly probably pushing for a title at this point. They're not out of the question. As far as controlling their own destiny, they have done everything that they're supposed to. Um, but beyond that, yeah, Rashford has 10 goals in the season. I think a majority of them have come after the break. So good for him. I'll still say that Casemiro is my signing of the season, despite this uh, idiot type play, which would be a great contender for idiot of the week.
Yeah, definitely, and I would still agree with that. I do think he's one guy that definitely stands out for United and for the Premier League. He's been still one of the best players, and
Yeah,
hopefully McFred is able to get the job done. Or if they use Sabitzer in there, I think that'll be probably a little bit better. Maybe Mick Sab or something like that would is possible. But yeah, I do think that Casemiro's absence will be felt, but we will see what happens on that front. The last Premier League match we're going to talk about was the one that just happened, the one that made me filled with rage, which is Man City losing to Tottenham 1-0. Obviously, big historic moment for Harry Kane scoring his 200th goal and 267th overall for Tottenham, breaking Jimmy Greaves' long-standing record. That's an absolutely incredible achievement, but Man City looked absolutely dreadful in this match. I don't understand why Pep didn't start Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, come on, you're in the business end of the season. You're past halfway. You got to use your best player every single game. I get that he has an injury history, but come on, you got to play him in a big match like this. You've never scored at the stadium. You've never scored in Tottenham's venue. Just use Kevin. I don't understand why they used I'm trying to think of who started over him. They subbed him on for Mahrez. I actually thought Mahrez was pretty good over the last couple of games, but I don't understand why you don't start Kevin De Bruyne alongside Rodri and somebody like Bernardo Silva, who they also played today. But I think the biggest talking point in this is Holland was a ghost in this match. He did not do anything in this
zero
game.
shots. Yeah. Obviously that's not going to happen a lot. I'd say this probably be one of maybe two in the rest of the season. Zero shots recorded um, in this game. I think City, the last few games, barring a couple exceptions, have looked quite poor as far as their standards go. Um, I don't really know what the plan is here, as far as whether you want to win the Prem or the Champions League or one of these other cups on the outside. It does not seem like a strong push is being made. I don't really know. Um, of course, like they just played a few weeks ago, and after halftime, they managed to come back and probably flip the game on its head. But then you come again, play the same team, different venue, of course, and now it's just you kind of disappeared at a
Yeah,
time where you really need to win.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think what it's looked like to me is that I think Pep has potentially understood that the title might be lost at this point. I think that City is going to put their attention to the Champions League, which if they do, I can understand that because that's the one thing that's eluded them since their big takeover and since Pep has become coach of them. But they're going to have to still play better than they did today. I mean, Jack Grealish, I think, was the best player for City today. He was drawing fouls. He obviously got Romero sent off. I do think he looked lively and is actually put together a decent season on his behalf. Um, but the fact that I mean Holland didn't, the fact that Holland was not involved in this game, I think kind of says something. I don't think, despite the fact that he's done very well this season, I actually think he's hindered City's system a bit. They've turned from kind of free flowing to get the ball to Erling and hope he scores, which that has worked obviously to an extent. He has 25 goals. It's not like he's been a failure, but he hasn't. There's been times where I feel like has gotten in the way of something where uh, Pep just isn't willing to try something else. What I may have actually done in this game was take him off after minute 60, maybe sub De Bruyne in for him, put Alvarez up front. Very different system. Alvarez, I think, allows them to play a little more free flowing, kind of the way Aguero or a Jesus did. But I think Holland just wasn't made for this game against Tottenham. I actually don't think he was giving nearly enough for what they needed from him.
I would, yeah, maybe for this game alone, I wouldn't say that he's been a hinder the whole season. Obviously, like you said, is scoring all those goals. It is a different system because they haven't had a true number nine in quite some time
Since
that
Aguero.
they can really look at and say this is our guy. Um, yeah, and Aguero was a completely different type of player. I think maybe this is something that takes time. I wouldn't say that this title race is even close to over. I think that's kind of premature. There's a lot of games left, and the gap is only 5 points. Of course, with a game difference, but I don't think they're going to win. But I don't think this is something that you should stop aiming for. Of course, if the UCL is your main uh, goal, you still have to play better because you're up against Leipzig, who has looked amazing this season, especially with a rejuvenated Timo Werner. You got Nkunku still, and then they're playing well. So if that's your goal, then you're going to need to focus up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think City should take Leipzig lightly whatsoever. I mean, I watched this team play in Dortmund live, and they scored 4 goals on Dortmund. You know, Danny Olmo's a threat, and Kunku's a threat. Even Conrad Leimer, who is obviously going to Bayern, he's a threat. Andre Silva in there, Yusuf Poulsen. There are guys in this team that can punish you if you take your foot off the gas whatsoever. And my worry is that City, when they are pressed, they have looked terrible this season, even against Everton. When Lampard was still there, Everton was pressing City, and they got a 1-1 draw at the Etihad. I mean, City have shown weakness this season, and it's when the other team is able to up the tempo on them. That's what Tottenham did today. Tottenham was able to just put City into uncomfortable positions where they couldn't dictate every single part of the play. If they can't do that this season, they've been very bad. And Pep's got to figure that out.
Yeah, I got to say, beyond Napoli, I think almost every team that's in the upper echelon of Europe has looked not like themselves. City, Bayern, Madrid, a few people to name have looked weak. Like you said, there's been weaknesses. Obviously, Liverpool
Even PSG.
disappeared. PSG has lost a few key games. Um, So maybe it's just something's in the air this season. I don't know. A lot of teams have been performing like a shell of their former selves, and
Yeah,
City's
obviously,
no exception.
as you said, obviously Napoli's a big one. We'll talk about their game next. We plan to talk about it a bit later, but they're 16 points ahead in the in the Serie A table right now.
Yeah,
Their key players have been Kivara. I again need to still figure out how to pronounce his name, but him and Victor Osimhen have been crucial guys for their team. Osimhen, I believe, is the leading scorer in Serie A. He's looked fantastic this season.
yeah, and we've covered the Prem enough at least for this week, so we can jump to the Serie A and just Napoli as a whole. I especially with the dropping of 15 points by Juventus. Not to say that they were the threat, but it seems like any threat of any team is completely just out the window now. Um, and in a couple weeks, Napoli play Frankfurt. I think Frankfurt should just say their prayers because if the team like this is still in form by the time their first leg rolls around, it could be a rout. It might be a 4-0 just absolute show. And feel bad for Frankfurt, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it is. To put Osimhen into perspective, he's played 17 games this season. He scored 16 goals and had 3 assists. So he's averaging over a goal contribution every game. I mean, that's absolutely insane. And he's been absolutely immense for Napoli. He's also only scored 14 goals last season. He's already immersed, like beaten his tally, and he's only on the way upwards for Napoli. Napoli's, I would say, gonna win the Serie A title this season easily. And the nice thing about this league is that obviously it was dominated by Juventus for the longest time, but it's possible that in the last 5 seasons we have 4 different winners. Juventus winning it with Ronaldo, Inter and AC Milan have both won it, and if Napoli win it this year, I mean that's something that I think a lot of people need to pay more attention to.
Yeah, that would be something that no other top five league has done in quite some time. Of course, the Prem for the last few years has been City, Liverpool dominated, mostly City. Obviously, Bayern has dominated the Bundesliga. Uh,
And La Liga's both been Madrid and
you switch a
Barcelona
little bit, and
or
sometimes
Atletico.
you throw an Atletico in there 1 year. And Ligue 1, of course, they've had a couple blips with Lille and
Monaco and then Lille.
yeah, but it's been mainly PSG. As far as having four different winners, this is totally uncharted territory for a top five in recent memory.
Absolutely, and I think that's what is going to make Serie A get some more eyebrows and eyebrows raised and eyeballs watching. Because I mean, this league is absolutely incredible, and I think a lot more people need to pay attention to it. Even Roma, obviously they haven't done much in the league, but they won the Europa Conference League last season, giving Jose Mourinho another trophy. Even they have been impressive, and I think that it's just the level of competition in Italy has risen a bit. Obviously, Napoli's running away with the league, but as we're saying, I mean, there's been a lot of competition the last few seasons with different teams coming into play. Uh,
Yeah, I don't see anyone stopping them there. I think that is a race that is probably quite finished definitively, unless they also get subtracted 15 points for bad financial behavior. I don't see them losing this.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, even if they are, they're still 1 point ahead. um, Moving on to the Bundesliga, there's 2 games that we want to talk about here. The first one is Bayern Munich getting back on track against Wolfsburg today, winning 4-2.
Yeah, just got finished watching the game before we started recording this episode. Uh, One thing that the commentator said that I totally agree with is they're starting to look like they're having fun, and when they start to have fun, that's when they're most dangerous, and that's definitely what it looked like. Of course, there were a few blips in there that were worrisome. Of course, they conceded 2 goals, um, but what was probably the most concerning is that Kimmich with a double yellow. I can't say it wasn't deserved. It was two kind of stupid challenges. Um, he will miss the next game. Luckily enough, it's against Bochum, who is 18th place or 15th place rather in the Bundesliga. So I wouldn't say it's too much of a loss, especially with the squad depth that they have. They might have gotten off easy on this one, considering their next matchup. Um, but they lost him around 60th. They were able to finish it and actually score a goal after he was sent off. So I'm not too upset with that. Of course, a win is a win, and it's definitely one that they needed. Every team in the top five has pushed them, and this is something that separates them now. They're only 1 point ahead of Berlin, but it was absolutely necessary.
Yeah, and the Bundesliga is wide open this season. I mean, Bayern are not running away with it whatsoever. And I think with Aller coming back for Dortmund, they're only going to look scarier. I mean, this is the guy that they brought in for replacing Holland. And he's finally off the mark and has his first goal. It's obviously, I think, taken him a while back to get to fitness, going through the battle that he's gone through, which is no slight to him whatsoever. I mean, he's no one should have to go through what he went through, especially at his age. So him getting back to fitness is no big surprise. But Dortmund have looked absolutely immense the last couple of games. They won 4-0 in their last game. Allaire scoring his first league goal, as I just mentioned, for Dortmund. But also, Giovanni Reina has turned into a bit of a super sub for them. Now, obviously, his parents are probably calling up Dortmund and telling them to start him. But that aside, he has looked good.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think this is a player with quality who should be starting in almost any team he plays for. But you do need someone who could be subbed on and make an impact. Of course, like in Bayern's game today, you had Serge Gnabry come on off the bench. If you have a player like that coming off the bench, then that says a lot about your squad depth. Of course, Gio has been making a lot of impacts in the last few games that they've played. It wasn't a close game at all, not even for a second. But just the last few games in general, he's been really, really good. And of course, like you said, Haller, first league goal for Dortmund. Of course, he scored in a friendly a couple weeks ago, but this is the first official Bundesliga goal for Dortmund that he scored. It was nice to see. Good for him. Of course, I don't like Dortmund for obvious reasons, but this was nice to see.
Yeah, I mean it's good to see him back. I think he's going to kick on. I think he'll finish with at least 7 or 8 goals this season. Wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if he was able to do that. And I think Reina is probably as annoyed as the general public is at his parents for the whole thing that they've done with Greg Berhalter. I think it's possible that that's lit a spark in him and has drove him to want to do a lot better. Um, I personally hope so. I think that when a situation like that happens, you got to kick on and move on with it. And I mean, to be fair to him, he said the right things after the World Cup. He said he didn't train hard enough, and he said he didn't deserve to start. He took it, and then that whole situation got blown completely out of proportion, not by him, but by Claudio and Daniel Reyna. Um, and I think that that's probably a little spark under him, and he definitely wants to do better now to prove that he can work hard and he can be that player that people expect him to be.
Yeah, he's just letting the football speak for itself, and I think at this point, with stories like this, that's really all you can do, and it's working. So, if they keep that up, then they're definitely a dangerous contender for the Bundesliga.
Absolutely. And then obviously we discussed Leipzig a bit earlier. They're still in the hunt as well. And then Union Berlin, which if they won, I would actually be quite happy for them because that's exactly not who anybody would expect to win the Bundesliga. So I would say if they win, fair play to them. And even as a Bayern fan, I think you could say the same.
No, they deserve it, but I would never say that. I'm never going to fold. Of course, I've been spoiled, but I'm never
That would be
gonna.
the biggest shock in any top five league since Leicester City. I mean, come on now. Like
Yeah,
that would
at
be
least
immense if they were able to somehow win the league. That would be
yeah,
crazy.
at least the Prem is always wide open. At least back then, a few years ago, where you had a mix of a few teams going back and forth. This is a league that if Union Berlin were to win it, which is not out of the question, no one would see that coming ever. It would even be a shock if Dortmund were to win it because, of course, they haven't won it for almost 10 years.
Yeah, it's been 10 years because the last time they got it was 2012. So, and that's when Lewandowski played for Dortmund. So it's been a long time. But yeah, anyways, moving on to La Liga. Um, uh, Barcelona are 5 points ahead of Madrid currently. They play later today. But the bigger one is that Madrid lost to Mallorca of all teams. I mean, absolutely abysmal match. Not a good day for me or any team that I support. We both teams had really bad 1-0 losses. Madrid was obviously missing a few guys, but still enough quality in that team to get the job done, and they just could not do it. Marco Asensio, especially, missing from the penalty spot was huge.
Yeah, of course it was. I think it was tallied as an own goal
Yeah, it was
against
off Nacho
Madrid.
Fernandez.
So that's definitely not a good way to lose. But even at the same time, if that didn't happen, you still would have drawn to a team that is not even close to your caliber. They just didn't play well, I guess, at the end of the day.
No, they didn't, and I do think that will only benefit Barcelona. They're, I would say, the favorites easily to win the league now. I don't think that Madrid's going to be able to catch up. And yeah, there was still enough quality in this team to get the job done. Obviously, the likes of Courtois didn't play, as well as Modric, Cruz were subbed in. Alaba didn't start. I think this is a case of Madrid looked down to their opposition. Obviously, they didn't have Benzema, but this is the type of game where if you don't start Kroos and Modric, I think it just kind of means that you're not taking the opposition super seriously, and you can never do that. I don't think that that bodes well for you as a team or your opponent. I think in actuality, it makes your opponents more angry and makes them want to play their game better, which is exactly what Valladolid did, and they got the own goal from Nacho Fernandez, who, frankly, I don't think should have been in the starting lineup. Alaba, I think, is a much better defender. Um, and yeah, poor result for Real Madrid. I think they're just going to turn their attention to the Champions League like they always do, and put their best foot forward and try to beat a team in 10th in the Premier League.
I'm not worried about their Champions League matchup. Liverpool suck right now. They suck. Of course, Madrid.
Sorry, Evan.
Sorry, not very sorry, but I'm sorry. But of course, Madrid has had their issues the last few games, but much like City, they might just be focusing on something that is more plausible. Even though I wouldn't say that the league is out of the question, depends on Barca's result today. Can they go 8 points ahead? If they can, then that's definitely a conversation to have.
Yeah, I've been to Sevilla's stadium. I believe this game is being played in Barcelona, but I am once again going to put my Sevilla cap on and just say, go Sevilla, because you guys gave me the greatest game that I've ever seen. Now, please beat Barcelona to make me even happier. You need to keep Madrid in the race, guys. Come on, I know you can do it. And yeah, I really hope Sevilla is able to kick on and win that one, but we'll see what happens. It's possible it doesn't happen. But yeah, that'll do it for our games this week. We'll now move into our good old segments of the week here. We'll start with Hero of the Week. I'll let you go first for that one.
Yeah, I think we have a London hero, both for himself and for Arsenal, as far as Harry Kane goes, scoring, like you said earlier, the 200 and the 267, breaking records, tying records, whatever you said it was, I forget.
Broke Jimmy Greaves' record.
Record. Um, Amazing for him. Of course, it was a great result for a team that might want to try and make top four against a team that is always solid. Of course, right now it's not looking like their former selves. But props to Harry Kane. He's got an amazing career, and it's a good feat for him.
Yeah, obviously that goal annoyed everything that I have in my being. But fair play to him. It's a definitely deserved pick. He deserves everything. It's possible he also goes down as the greatest player to ever play and not win anything. And I hope for his sake that he does win something, just not the Premier League this season. And yeah, my hero of the week though is going to be Sebastian Aller. I picked him a couple of weeks ago for scoring in that friendly. I'm not going to pick him for scoring in his first Bundesliga match. Once again, it's great to see him back, and I think that he deserves everything that he's worked so hard to get to this point.
Yeah, no arguments with that. I would have picked him if you didn't already do it yourself. So just to give it some variety, but I don't disagree with
Fair
that pick.
enough.
Good for him.
Absolutely.
He's been through a lot, and it's good to see that it's hasn't even phased him. He is just back to his ways that he was with Ajax. He's doing great.
Yeah. And now moving into our goal of the week section, I'll let you go first for this one.
Goal of the week. Okay, I kind of am a little bit torn just because of my uh fanship to Bayern, but I have a split between Jamal Musiala's goal today against Wolfsburg and Matoma against Liverpool, I think it was. Um, but Matoma has just been insane the whole season, and now he's finally getting the recognition that he deserves. It's one of those players who obviously isn't one of your household names, isn't a star player, but he's playing just as well as anyone else is. He must have heard someone say that Mars is playing like Matoma, and now all of a sudden he's just on a roll. So, good for him. It was a beautiful goal, and they absolutely needed it. Um, and beyond that, of course, I'll give some props to Jamal Musiala. It was the fourth goal scored in a game that was kind of won, but was a little bit nerve-wracking. He split 45 defenders. Everyone was just getting right on top of him, and he just didn't care. He let a nice goal in, dribbling for days. It's always great to see when he scores.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Matoma, his goal was amazing, but I actually do think that he can become a star player. I mean, he's going to be starting a lot more now with Trossard being out. He's going to slide right into that left wing spot, which is where he's been playing. And I think, yeah, I do think that this guy is good enough to take over and be better than Trossard was. And that's saying something. I do think that Trossard was the best player for Brighton, and I do think that he'll only go further.
Yeah, no, and obviously I said not a household name now. We'll see in the future. He's pretty young, and Brighton is just a squad that is exciting to watch right now.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
see
I
him
may have
coming.
cut out there again. Again, the Wi-Fi did glitch out, but not a great day for it, but a good day for Bayern Munich and Jamal Musiala, as well as a good weekend for Cairo Matoma. Um, for my goal of the week, I picked Lionel Messi against I believe it was Troyes or Strasbourg. I can't remember who PSG were playing this week. It's escaped me for some reason. They beat Toulouse. I said Troyes first. They both begin with T. It was against Toulouse. So basically, to this point, what makes this goal incredible, and my dad actually pointed this out to me, he said that Messi had been taking all of the corners up until this game, which, as you would expect. But they didn't have him take the corner around the 65th minute. Somebody else takes it. It's a short pass. They get it across, throw it across the middle. Messi's right there on the semicircle, puts it right, a low corner shot right into the bottom corner. Absolutely genius play if you're PSG. I mean, you're putting the guy that used to be in corners. The other team wasn't expecting it. Messi does his thing.
Yeah, this is something that they'll need to do, especially with Mbappe out, if they want to continue to succeed for the coming weeks, at least while he's not playing. And of course, in the Champions League, that's scary. That's very scary. He is absolutely in incredible form right now. And this goal is no exception. It's beautiful.
Absolutely, and that's why I picked Lionel Messi for this one. As for our idiot of the week, I'll go first on this one. There's a couple that I can pick here. I'm going to give a shout out to Liverpool for conceding 3 goals to a team that scored 15 all season. That's 20%. Wolves scored 20% of their goals against Liverpool in one match. So I'm going to give a shout out to them for being terrible. But really, I think there's only one answer for me, and that is Carlos Henrique Casemiro for choking out a Crystal Palace player and taking a very dumb red card.
He must have forgot the sport that he was playing, but yeah, we talked about that earlier. Obviously, shouldn't do that, but it was kind of funny to see. Of course, the other player is okay, which is great, but it was kind of funny.
Yeah, no, absolutely dumb red card. Just very idiotic moment. But there's, I mean, the Man City could also be on there because that was just a poor performance. But I think Casemiro is the right way to go for this one, and we'll see what happens with United and missing him.
Yeah, and of course, my idiot of the week. It's not one that's very surprising. We're just gonna give it to Chelsea, and maybe specifically Mudryk. He only played 45 minutes But in those 45 minutes, he recorded a whopping zero everything. He didn't do a damn thing. Chelsea suck. I'll say it until they prove me wrong. They suck. They're gonna get walloped by Dortmund when it comes time for Champions League. Um, you could call it a rebuild, whatever you want, whatever the case may be, but they suck.
Respend.
They suck, and they're idiots. And Todd Boy is an idiot. Um, that's yeah. No shame in saying that for my idiot of the week.
Yeah, I think that's a fair pick, especially drawing 0-0 with Fulham, who we've already said this team has had a history of just absolutely demolishing. First, they lose at Craven Cottage, and then Fulham walk into Stamford Bridge and take a point. I mean, that's just sad. They couldn't even score a goal. I mean, like you spend so much on Mudryk, you spend so much on Madueke, you spend so much in Enzo Fernandez. You know, a guy that's great going forward, and you still can't score a goal. That is absolutely dismal. And yeah, I don't see it getting better for Graham Potter, but yeah, hard to say for that one.
Surprised that he's still there, and I haven't really heard any talk of him not being there in the coming weeks. But that might be something that they want to look into.
Yeah, I personally think Potter should be sacked, but that's just me. But anyways, that will do it for us this week. We discussed a lot of transfers that happened on deadline day. That'll be the last time we're probably going to be talking about those for a while. And then we moved into some games, some big Premier League matches, including Man City losing to Tottenham, Arsenal losing to Everton, as well as West Ham and United. West Ham getting a draw, United beating Crystal Palace at home. We had then talked about Ligue 1 and the fact that PSG did win 2-1, but also lost Kylian Mbappe for a few weeks. We then moved into the Bundesliga, talked about Bayern and Dortmund. Then moving into La Liga, talking about the title race there, as well as a big Serie A lead for AS Napoli. And then we moved into our usual segment of Hero, Idiot, and Goal of the Week. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Follow us on Instagram. Anything helps. We're really trying to put all of our efforts into this and making this the best content that we can possibly make for everyone that has watched us. So that will do it from us. Until next time, I am Grayson Mortimer.
Hunter Boyven.
And we will see you next time.